Hi everyone, Yvonne Britton here, and today I'm joined by Jennifer Pierce. Jennifer goes by what Spirit says on Instagram. I think she's a really inspirational Instagrammer. So thanks for joining us today, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here.
Thank you. Jennifer, could you just start maybe? I think you've got a really inspirational story. Could you maybe start from the beginning? Like,
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So, as a young child growing up, I, was a pretty healthy kid. But around the third grade, I started to get eczema on my skin, and my parents didn't know what to do. And so, for many years, I would just use like a hydrocortisone creams on my skin to just kind of help with the itchiness and the redness. But slowly over time, it just became worse, and it would appear in different places, new places where it hadn't been before. And so when I graduated from college and was actually in my first professional job and had benefits and all of these things, I ended up going to a dermatologist who prescribed a topical steroid cream and told me that the only long-term side effect would be that it might thin out my skin. And he just said to just use it sparingly as I needed to. So I followed that guidance. But 15 years later, having applied topical steroids minimally to suppress the symptoms of the eczema, I went through topical steroid withdrawal, which is a real drug withdrawal, where for a time I had like night sweats, and I was losing my hair, and my skin just, it no longer responded to the medication. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. This happened shortly after I gave birth to my daughter. And during my pregnancy with her, I also was diagnosed for the first time with hypothyroidism. And so my thyroid wasn't, according to doctors, producing enough of the hormone. And so I was on, some medication for that as well. And I just thought, how could this be, where I'm in my early 30s and having such serious health issues. And so I started cleaning up my diet at the recommendation of my naturopath. And I went one day to a restaurant, a fully raw restaurant, and I was taking a class there about how to make raw crackers. And I was sitting across the table from two other ladies. I was there by myself, and so I just sparked up a conversation with them, and I just said, how long have you been raw, and what kind of prompted you to do this? And they looked at me and they said, well, have you ever heard of the medical medium? And I said, no, you tell me everything. And I explained that I had eczema and different things. And they're like, well, you must have Epstein-Barr virus. And I'm like, Epstein-Barr, what? Like, spell this for me, because I've never heard this before. And I just soaked in everything they said. It really struck a chord with me, and I couldn't wait to get home that night and look him up on his website. I bought his book that night. It came in the mail, a day or two later, and I read it within hours. I couldn't get enough. Everything he said, it just spoke to my heart. I'm like, this is the truth. I know it in the core of my being that this is what's caused my eczema, my hypothyroidism. This is what I need to do to heal. I bought a juicer, blender. I mean, I started the protocol the next day. And it was hard, trying to break out of all of these different food addictions and just going against what people, they say, well, if you want to have B12, you need to eat meat. And, there's just a lot of guidance out there that's, people have the best intentions, but it's not always, it's not always, the truth. And so I had to pave my own way, and I decided, after my son was born, that enough time had passed, enough healing had occurred, and I was feeling a little bit more confident in the decisions that I had made, that I said, well, maybe I'll start sharing my story. I really felt like at this time in my life, my family and my friends didn't really understand what I was doing. And so I thought, well, maybe if I create an Instagram, I can share with them and show them what I'm doing through pictures and prose, rather than try to explain it, on the side. And I also just really wanted to connect with other like-minded people. There aren't a lot of people in my immediate circle that really understands, what it's like to go through something like this. And so they really couldn't relate to me, and I wanted to find others that I could relate to. And so that's why I started What Spirit Says about nine or 10 months ago. And it was my way of taking some of Anthony William and Spirit's, information, and breaking it down into little nuggets, so that things that I thought were interesting, or just, favorite passages, and I could share my experience, and then, maybe put in a little quote from one of Anthony's books, and share that with people. And it's been really fun, and the response has been amazing. And I just feel so grateful and humbled to be part of the community.
Yeah, some of the pictures, some of the photos that you put on are like, I mean, you say that you had eczema, but like when you look at those pictures, I mean, they're very impactful, not the before and after ones.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I know, it's, at the time, I just felt like, I'm surprised I even have photos, because I didn't plan to document any of this. I didn't want anybody to see what I was going through. I actually, for that whole, that first year of going through the withdrawal, I didn't speak to many of my friends. A lot of people didn't know what was happening. Only until I started the Instagram did they say, like, oh my gosh, where have we been? Like, why didn't you tell us? We could have been there for you. But I think I just needed to really process it all and go through that journey of self-discovery, really. But the few photos I do have, the first few I took because I was reaching out to a health coach for guidance, and she said, well, let me see what your skin looks like. Can you snap me a photo? And then I have a couple others, because my husband has played such a big role in my healing journey, because he was able to care for our daughter for a time where I really couldn't. And we were separated for a week. And I snapped a photo to say, like, thank you, because this is what I look like right now. And thank you for being such a good dad and a great husband. And so that's the only reason I have any of those photos. And so now I'm just like, okay, I think it was meant to be that I snapped just a couple, so that I could look back and explain to people now, like, okay, this is what I kind of looked like when I started, and this is what it looked like when I went through moisturizer withdrawal. And so here's kind of the phases, and here I am today. So yes, yeah, that's the photos. My gosh, like, it says 1,000 words right there, I think.
It really does, and I can just imagine someone who's in that situation. I mean, they might not even have any hope. They might be going to health coaches and doctors, and to see, when you know that somebody has actually done it, it's that whole new sense of hope that comes up, I think, when you know it's actually
Right.
possible.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, I just want to share that I've been messaged to a few times by people, like you're saying, going through the same thing. And they shared with me that they were having suicidal thoughts before they found my page, and that I've given them hope. And it just brings me to tears, because I know what that felt like and what it feels like to, be in that situation. And so it makes every effort of, what I'm trying to do just to spread the word. And it makes it worth it, because I know now that I am reaching people and I'm helping them. And that's all I've ever wanted. It's just to help. So.
No, it's really amazing what you're doing. And what was when you started on your healing journey, can you pinpoint like a turning point where you saw maybe just a small improvement and you were like, okay, this is working, and that helped to propel you forward?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So what happened is, I was following the protocol, medical meeting protocol. My body was detoxing so much. my skin, it just felt like it was on fire. And your natural inclination is to try to put creams on your skin, and to, you're thinking like, it's all dry, it's flaky, I need to moisturize because that's the only way, to bring moisture back into your skin. But what I did end up doing that was a major turning point for me was I did what's called, I think, moisturizer withdrawal, where I actually quit all moisturizers, including water, no coconut oil, nothing even natural. I didn't put anything on my skin at all. And that made such a huge difference. I think that the earlier months of doing all the detox and just trying to purge out as much as I could prepared me so that when I did go through the moisturizer withdrawal, the healing that was happening underneath my skin was so immediate and so profound that within 3 weeks, there was significant improvement happening. And I'm just so grateful it worked out that way. I didn't plan for it to happen that way, but my intuition was telling me, do not use any more moisturizers. Let your body heal. It's smart. Your body knows better than you do. And just stop everything. And I'm so grateful I did, because some of the photos that you see where my skin is very dry and flaky, that was when I was going through moisturizer withdrawal. But what was happening is, instead of shedding constantly like I had been leading up until that time, I just let my skin do what it needed to do. And the skin underneath was so strong. So by the time I was kind of complete with this phase of, this moisturizer withdrawal, I wasn't shedding constantly anymore. The redness had subsided. The itchiness was fading. And actually the itchiness is really like the worst part. And so I was so grateful that all of these major symptoms were starting to fade away. And so I highly recommend anybody going through topical steroid withdrawal that, in addition to changing your diet and supporting your body through detox, quit moisturizers as soon as you feel comfortable, and find a safe space where you can let your body just do what it needs to do to start healing naturally. And I think that was a big turning point for me, and I hope that works for other people too.
It's amazing what you're explaining, because your skin looks beautiful. I mean, it looks so clear. Do you not like look at yourself still in the mirror every day, like, oh my God, like?
I do. I don't take it for granted for a single moment. I just, every morning I'm like, okay, is it a good skin day? I'm like, it is. And there's more and more of those now. Some days were good. Some days I'd wake up and I'd have some redness, some puffiness. And now I wake up, it's like, oh, it feels soft. It's not shedding, and it's been incredible. And what's amazing too, so when I was pregnant with my son, so my second pregnancy, I did have a flare up of some eczema. Anthony says that's common because your immunity is going to the baby, and so it's not able to kind of knock down some of the viral load in your body. And I also wasn't comfortable doing too much detox while I was pregnant. I was doing the heavy metal detox smoothie and the celery juice every day while I was pregnant. It's safe to do that. And I was continuing to follow the protocol, but I wasn't doing the liver rescue cleanse or the 28-day cleanse, anything like that while I was pregnant. So I did have some symptoms crop up. And after my son was born, the eczema started clearing again, but it wasn't quite back to where it had been before I was pregnant. And I thought, what is going on here? And so I reached out to my my wellness coach, Healing with Rose, and she recommended, in addition, to some supplements that I've been taking, she recommended I start homeopathy. And that's something new to me as well that I had never done before. I didn't know anything about it. And I started consulting with a woman, Lori. She's with the Gentle Homeopath, and she gave me some remedies. And within 2 weeks of starting homeopathy, I was back to where I was, and even better than before I was pregnant. And every day since I've been doing homeopathy, combined with so many of these other things, it's the best my skin's ever been, I think. So I still have a little ways to go. The changing of the seasons, I noticed some dryness, but I'm not afraid anymore. I know what to do. I know how to move forward, and it gives me a lot of confidence now and excitement. And I feel like I have my life back. So I'm grateful to everybody I have so many coaches now and so much support, and I'm just very grateful to everybody.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. You mentioned supplements, and I know supplements are very specific to the person that takes them, but would you mind sharing which ones you take?
Sure. Yes. So I definitely do B12 and zinc every day. Those are like the two most important things I never want to miss.
Did you say B12 and lysine? Is that what you said?
Oh, B12 and zinc.
Oh, and zinc. Okay.
And zinc, yes. And I'm sorry, there was a car that just drove by. Yeah, so B12 and zinc, very important. So I have those every day for sure. And then I make the heavy metal detox smoothie almost daily. Sometimes I run out of the ingredients, so then it kind of turns into whatever I have in my kitchen. But I do add to my smoothies. Sometimes I'll add the ester C, the L-lysine. Also very important. I take the Mary Ruth multivitamins.
Okay.
Those are great. I'm still breastfeeding, so I have to be a little bit careful about some of the herbs that I'm taking. So I'm trying not to take on too much. But my son did have a hospital stay when he was very young. He was, oh my gosh, the first one, I think he was 5 weeks old. And then we had to go back when he was 9 weeks old because he had a UTI, which Anthony tells us is caused by strep. And so there was a time where I was also taking Demonose, and I think I was taking cranberry, and I was drinking a lot of grapefruit juice and things to really knock back the strep. And I was being even more strict with my diet. I was cutting out legumes and I don't eat grains, not very often, but I try not to eat any grains at all. So I was really trying to knock back the strep so that all the milk that I was providing for him was very antiviral as well, and antibacterial too. So sometimes I do take different remedies if the situation calls for it. But yeah, my go-to is always the B12, the zinc, the multivitamins, and the L-lysine ester C. And I feel like there's probably a couple more in there. You should see my cabinet. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many things in here. But yes, and I do also give some supplements to my children. Get lemon balm, and some it's nettle. They also will get, and of course, if any of us are under the weather, elderberry. We love elderberry in our house. My daughter just thinks it's like candy. She likes it's so sweet from the honey. But yes, so there's just a few of the things that are kind of in our arsenal, if you will.
Lemon balm's good. I give it to my daughter too.
Yeah. What
was I going to ask? What about the lemon? So like, how does your day start? Do you do the lemon water and then celery juice, or?
Yes, so because I do wake up in the night, my son isn't sleeping through the night yet. And because I'm still nursing him, I do have lemon water by my bed, my nightstand. So I'm actually drinking lemon water throughout the night. And then whatever's left, I finish that, in the morning. And so I do usually start with lemon water. And then of course, following my lemon water, have my celery juice, and I try to drink celery juice every day, of course. And it's awesome. It's so refreshing. It kind of like activates my cells. Like my cells feel energized, and I feel so hydrated when I drink it. So I just love it. So we always, have our celery juice. My kids have it too. Sometimes they drink more than other days, but it's part of our routine. So I'm really glad I can share that with them. Yeah. And then we have our smoothie, always a smoothie. And what I've been doing for myself is I try to have like a 32-ounce smoothie in the mornings just to help get me through the day. Sometimes I just get really hungry. I just need some extra calories there. But we're always fat-free in the mornings. We do our liver rescue morning. And my daughter loves her smoothies. If we're in the car, I always have it, in a to-go. So she's very familiar with our routine now, which is great.
Oh, that's really good. And what about cucumber juice? Do you ever do cucumber juice?
It's funny you're mentioning that. I've just started doing a secondary juice. Not every day. Sometimes my days just get crazy, but yesterday we had cucumber juice with apple. When we came home, we were running some errands, so we kind of had our morning, and then I came home, had some juice, just to rehydrate. And I do think if I can really stick with the second juice, it would make a big difference just for continuing to stay hydrated, and it's great for the kids as well. And I think my daughter and my son actually prefer the cucumber with the apple. Just it's a little bit sweeter, a little bit,
My daughter just did.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I do love a secondary juice. We also do make orange juice as well.
Oh,
And so that's a huge hit in our house. I make it for the heavy metal detox smoothie, but then my daughter always wants to drink it alone. So we do like to juice our oranges. Yeah.
I go through so many kilos of oranges a week. It's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
that's where I can like put the zinc in, because this Bimergy zinc I much prefer to the other brand, and that one's like so much easier just to pop in the orange juice. I mean, I take it straight, but yeah, we do orange juice too.
Okay.
The reason I asked about the cucumber juice was that I find my skin improves with. I only use moisturizer on my face, and I only use the one now on Anthony's website. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Honey Skin or something.
Yes.
But I do like tend to get a bit dry skin on my legs,
Mhm.
like liver thing with the lemon water. And I never have really used moisturizers all over my body, like body lotion I've never used. But I do notice with cucumber juice that my skin becomes a lot softer. That's why I was.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yes, it's nice when you actually notice improvement, like your body's giving you that feedback, because then you know, okay, this is working. Let's keep going with it.
Yeah.
So, love that.
Yeah. What about after the mornings? Because I know how hectic it is with kids. Like, what else do you tend to eat during the day? Like, until what time are you kind of like fat free or raw or?
Yeah. It really is tricky. Sometimes I'm just starving, so it's hard to be fat free all the time until dinner. So sometimes for lunch we either make I'll make for myself like a big salad. I'll add a little bit of avocado, maybe a squeeze of some lemon juice. We like to make the raw wraps with cucumber, mango, avocado, and we wrap it up in like the coconut, dehydrated coconut, or the seaweed wraps. So we like to do that. If we don't go fully raw, we eat a lot of potatoes in our house too. So some days, if it's like a cold day, or if we just feel like we need a little bit more grounding, we will make potato bowls for lunch, which is really easy. Just throw a big potato in and top it with. We have a garden. We're so lucky, but we have tomatoes and parsley, cilantro, basil, chives, green onions. We have so many wonderful things that we can add as a topper. So I do that for lunch or dinner as well. Dinner is a little bit tricky because my husband's not following the protocol, and so I try to kind of find things that he will enjoy. So I make we do like a Taco Tuesday where I use like the siete tortillas. It's a cassava-based tortilla, or the papas. It's a potato-based shell as well. And I add either roasted potatoes with some seasoning, or some jackfruit with a little seasoning for the filler. And then again, we just load it with veggies, lots of the tomatoes and avocado, although those are both fruits, of course, but spinach and the onions, garlic, things like that on top. And so we always have our Taco Tuesday. My husband really loves that. I also I love Anthony's recipe for the sweet potato pizza. We make pizza quite often with potato as our base, and the sweet potato is huge. For my son loves sweet potato. So he's not quite a year, but his solid foods have been sweet potato, wild blueberries, banana, avocado, and then he'll have smoothies with us and the juices. So those are his first foods, and he just loves sweet potatoes. So we like to, mix it up between the russets and the sweet. But we eat a lot of potatoes, different variations in our house, and it's fun now. I feel like it's so normal for us, and I don't miss any of the conventional foods anymore, it's a good feeling. It took me a long time to feel okay with our new routine. So
what was your diet like prior to that, like going back before you
yeah.
started on your healing journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to think I was such a healthy eater, but we lived in Seattle, Washington, which is a very foodie city. We both worked in a corporate job. This was before kids. And so we would meet, my husband and I, after work, we'd meet for happy hour, and we would go and get like charcuterie boards with like artisanal cheeses. And we would get, fresh caught salmon, and we would eat, and like fish was such a big thing it is such a big thing in Seattle. And so we were always having sushi and oh my gosh, there were so many different foods. There's so many beautiful bakeries in Seattle. So like the fresh breads, and we would of course have, eggs on the weekend, or for breakfast. That was always a big one. There were also some really lovely homemade yogurts that you could get in Seattle. So again, I was thinking, I'm getting all these things that are fresh, homemade, and I'm just looking back now, realizing, oh my gosh, it doesn't matter if they're fresh and homemade.
Yeah.
An egg is an egg, whether it's organic and free range or not. So of course, looking back, my eyes are opened now, and I understand, where it wasn't the best for me. But yes, I mean, it wasn't, I wasn't going to Pizza Hut or things like that, but I still, had lots of meat, a high fat diet, high sugar, very processed. And so I'm very grateful now to know, how to come back from that and to still feel very nourished and very satisfied.
Yeah. Was there something in particular that was difficult for you to give up, like coffee or bread? And was there one thing, or?
I think the hardest thing to give up for a while maybe was the dairy and cheeses, but they have so many great alternatives that it's been nice to I was able to kind of wean myself off by choosing some of these dairy substitutes. So that was hard, but now I don't even the substitutes, like I'll have them every now and then, but I've kind of even moved away from those. But I think that was a big one. Eggs, I think, also took me a while to just kind of, I wasn't really eating them, but I do remember there was a day I had been following Anthony for, I want to say like 9 months, and I was feeling so good. And all of a sudden I felt invincible. And I thought, maybe I can start eating the way I used to eat. And I did. I went to breakfast. I think I had a bite of eggs and some toast. And I thought, okay, I can start eating this again. Not only did it taste terrible, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what an egg really tastes like. This is not what I remember. But the next day I had a flare, and I thought, okay, I needed that feedback to know that I'm not invincible. There's more healing to be done. And I just need to stay the course. And so, but I think I needed to check in with my body every so often to know how I was feeling. And I think that's common. And I think that's okay if people need to just kind of experiment a little bit, because having that feedback gives you that reassurance and that confidence to keep moving forward, especially when you're surrounded by people that are constantly telling you like, oh, have this slice of birthday cake because it's your birthday, you can celebrate. And for me, it's like, I'm celebrating my health right now. And the fact that I have lived another year with this condition, and I don't want to go back to that place mentally or physically. And so while I'm like, thank you very much, I'm actually choosing to have a bowl of grapes or some watermelon or, some fruit, something else, because that's, I think, what my soul actually needs to continue to heal from the experiences. So yes, oh my goodness, it's just, you're kind of bringing back so many memories, like, wow, I really have come so far, and until I really thought about it, it's sometimes hard to remember.
Yeah, I think the point that you bring up about feeling invincible, oh my God, I feel better now, I can go and eat these things, it's a really good point. And I think it's a really positive thing to do, because there could be someone that has the eggs and toast and the next thing is okay, or there could be someone that's like has them and ends up in bed.
Mm-hmm.
Your dog.
It's our neighbors, I'm sorry. There's a lot of dogs in our street. We have a great neighborhood. And so, but of course, when the dogs see each other, they get very excited.
And then they all start barking. Just one thing I wanted to ask before we finish, like if you look at your journey emotionally, or like
I'm just turning up the volume here. Say that one more time.
Your like emotional journey and all of this, or like who you were then, not just physically, but like emotionally, spiritually, or whatever. Like, what would you say about that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think emotions play a huge part in our healing. Having a positive attitude is everything. I truly believe you could have the most perfect diet and be following everything to a T, but if you're emotionally, spiritually out of sync or unhappy, I think that healing will take a lot longer. My father passed away about, I think it's 6 years now, and I had a really hard time with religion at that time of my life. I was raised in Christian Science, and I fell away from that religion because I just was having a really hard time understanding how someone so young and who seemed to be so fit on the outside could have passed away. And so I think that carried into my illness. And so it's been 3 years to the day. It's actually very timely that we're speaking today, because it was October 26th of 2016 that I started topical steroid withdrawal. And so I think the death of my father and the birth of my daughter, and there are a lot of emotions that really go on to these big life events. And so it has been a journey, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. What I did start to do though is I'm doing some emotion code with Rose, who I mentioned before, and I think that's giving me a little bit more clarity into how important our emotions really are. And I try to check in with my own emotions just to make sure, that I'm trying to stay positive. When it's hard having 2 young children and to be healing. And so there are days where sometimes I feel tired, or I was up with my son and I just wake up and I feel like, oh my gosh. But I try now not to impart those feelings on my children. I try as hard as I can to just stay very positive, very upbeat. Some days are, it's harder than others, but I'm aware now more so than I ever have been. We've also have just recently started going back to church. I want my daughter to have, and my son too, who's just a little too young at the moment, but I want them to have a faith and to be faith-based, and to know that that there are so many, opinions out there. So, it's just, I feel like it was so important in my upbringing. I feel like it really made me a better person. And I think that would be great for her too. I think that it makes us better humans to have a faith. And so bringing her into that now is important to me, and we're going to church again, which is nice. So I think just for me, I've really just been trying to tackle my life and my health, and from many different angles. Diet is just a part of it, a huge part of it, but there are other things that I'm doing as well. And I'm just now starting to kind of share some of those things on my Instagram. Diet is very easy to talk about because it's very tangible. But the emotion part of it is a little bit harder, because no one really knows what you're going through. They might know what you're eating, but they don't know how you're feeling. And so I've just started talking about that, because to your point, I think it's important to start sharing what our thoughts are and our feelings, and how we're able to explore those emotions, appreciate those emotions, because it's another signal that you're, needing to process something, or just, yeah, that it's all connected. And so your emotional health is just as important as your physical health. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because that's not something that I've really been talking a lot about yet, but I do agree that it's extremely important.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it is easier to focus on the food and the diet. And like you say, some people can be so strict about the diet, but if you're if you're kind of like toxic emotionally, or then it does have an impact. And I think if you're sharing your story and you share your emotional experience as well, like these people who have reached out to, they it's different. As soon as someone says, oh, I've been feeling like this, or this is what happened, you don't feel alone. I remember when my daughter was born, we were at a kind of like mums group, and one girl walked in and she was like, I didn't sleep not one wink of sleep last night. And I just like relaxed. I was like, I'm not the only one, that was, all of a sudden I felt better, but I hadn't slept more. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people find you?
So my Instagram is called @WhatSpiritSays. And I created that name as a nod to Anthony William and his source of spirit, because that's really been the biggest influence on my life. And I'm so grateful to them. And I believe in spirit, and I love the information that they're, I say they, Anthony and Spirit, are producing for us, because I know they're working very hard and tirelessly to get all of this information to us and in our hands. And so it's just my way of, saying thank you. And I'm also just trying to spread the word, just to reach as many people as possible.
Okay, well, I thank you for all the work you're doing, because I think you're helping a lot of people. So.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Thanks to talk to me.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Okay, bye.